day, grade 12 learners. Welcome to today's Agricultural Sciences lesson. My name is Zulu Fezega. This lesson is brought to you by the Northern Cape Department of Education in collaboration with Parma Research and Development. Economics revision, that's what we are dealing with today. And our main focus is on obtaining more marks on price determination. Remember, we've already covered the low order questions or low order questions of price determination. And today we will be looking on how to score more marks on price determination. Right? By the end of this lesson, learners, you should be able to define and describe supply and demand, explain and interpret the law of supply and demand curves, identify and explain factors affecting the supply and demand of a product, because that is very important. Interpret a hypothetical supply and demand curve to indicate market equilibrium. How do we use supply and demand curve to determine or to indicate the market equilibrium or equilibrium price? That is what we are looking at on our today's lesson. Now, we are still on the revision, obviously. It's very important to study. We always tell you that you need to study, you need to use different methods of study. But when it comes to price determination, I always encourage people or learners to understand, firstly, the learning objectives, as I've already indicated, have the keywords, know the definitions, the tables, know the graphs, because that is what you will be interpreting for the final examination. You should be able to draw these graphs. You should be able to interpret these graphs. You should be able to calculate, make calculations and interpret. You should be able to apply the supply and the demand law to indicate the market equilibrium. Now, with that being said, mind map works wonders. Remember, I said mind map, it is there to tell you, to guide you on what you should study about that specific topic. Like, for instance, on this one, we have price determination. We've already mentioned that. Price determination, it requires two laws, the supply law and the demand law. Without these two laws, there will be no market equilibrium. There will be no price determination. Also, this mind map or your mind map that you have created will also indicate on how this demand supply affects the price and how the price affects the demand as well as the supply. And it will always tell you and also tell you or indicate that price is not only the factor that affects the supply, that also affects the demand. There are also other factors that you should know and consider and remember and study, so you can obtain that level 7, that level 6, or that level 5. Now, let's start or look at the price determination. Now, price determination, as I've already indicated, that it requires supply as well as the demand law. Without the supply and the demand law, there will be no equilibrium price, where we are determining the market equilibrium price, where we are determining the price that a consumer is willing to pay for that specific product. Now, price determination. Firstly, understand that there is a supply law that is involved, as well as the demand law that is involved. Now, you should be able to state these two laws and be able to identify and interpret them for the final examination. Whether you are looking at the graph, you should be able to tell that this is the supply law that is applying here, or the demand law that is applying in this graph. Now, the supply law, it speaks of that when the price of a product increases, the quantity supplied or the quantity decreases. When the price of a product increases, the quantity supplied or provided, it also increases, of which tells us that the relationship between the quantity supplied and the price, they are directly proportional. When the other one goes to the right, the other one follows to the right. When the other one goes to the left, the other one also goes to the left. They are always directly proportional. That is the relationship, of which tells you that suppliers want to make profit. Suppliers want to supply more product when the price is high. And then when the price is low, they supply less product. And also for price determination, understand the demand law that says when the price of a product increases, the quantity demanded decreases, which indicates that these two variables, they are inversely proportional to each other, or inversely proportional by saying, if the other one increases, the other one decreases. When the other one goes forward, the other one goes backward. When the other one goes to the right, the other one goes to the left. That is inversely proportional. That is the relationship between the price and the quantity demanded. So these are the laws that are used when determining the price for a particular product. Now, also, let's start looking at the supply curve, right? Supply curve, right, controlled by the supply law that says the price is high, the supply will be high. When the price is low, the supply will also be low. Now, the supply curve is a graph. Now, when in the exam you are asked to indicate what is the name of that line, it is the supply curve. Why? Because it is a graph. The supply curve is a graph that shows the relationship between the price and the supply, controlled by the supply law. So it is the supply law that controls the supply curve, how the supply curve will look like. Now let's look at this supply curve. Now on the x-axis we have the quantity supplied, on the y we have the price. We know since we have the quantity supplied is an independent variable affecting what? The price, of which is the dependent variable, of which makes supply being at all times on the x-axis and the price being on the y-axis. Why? Because the price is affected by the supply. Now, in the market, when the price is low, the producers supply less product, or 100 product. When we keep on increasing the price, they supply more product, increase the price again, supply more. And then when we keep on increasing the price again, they keep on supplying more product, of which indicates that the supply law tells the truth. It indicates the truth between the relationship between the supply as well as the price being directly proportional. Now, because of this, there is no balance in the market. There is no agreement in the market because consumers do not agree with this trend where the price will be directly proportional to the supply. The only thing that consumer wants, it is a price that is reasonable. Now, apart from a price, there are also other factors that affect the supply in the market. The number of products that are supplied in the market, that are available in the market. Now, firstly, seasonal production, whether you are producing on season or out of season. We know when producing on season, you will produce more. When producing out of season, you will produce less, meaning you will end up supplying less. Right? Another one, state subsidies as well as taxation, of which is the benefit, the tax. right? The price of a product, number of suppliers supplying the product. The more producers are in the market, the more product will be supplied, or more product will be supplied, right? Technology, if you have adapted to the new technology, you will end up producing more, right? Scientific knowledge. When you have adapted to scientific methods, you will end up producing more. So these are the factors that you should look for, or you should study for, or know for the final examination. Now, we are still on price determination, but on this one, we are dealing with the demand curve. Now, the demand curve is controlled by a law, of which is the law of demand, that says when the price is high, the demand will be low. When the price is low, the demand will be high. Consumers buy products when the price is low, and they do not buy when the price is high. Now, this demand curve, it is there to show how the law of demand applies. Now, on the x-axis, we'll always have the quantity demanded as the independent variable. On the y-axis, we will always have what? The price, of which is the dependent variable. Now, we have quantity 1, 2, and 3. Price 1, 2, and 3. The first price that is determined in the market is high. What happens when the price is high? Quantity demanded will be low. This one is the second price determined in the market. What happens if the price decreases? The quantity demanded will increase. We are moving to the right. Now, this is the third price determined in the market. Now, it has increased. It is better. It is lesser than price number 2. Now, what happens to the quantity demanded? Producers or consumers, will demand more product. Now, when the price decreases, the quantity demanded will increase. That is being inversely proportional. Now, apart from the price, what are other factors that affect the demand? The price, obviously, taste of consumers, price of competing products, quality of product, income spending, research. Right. Now, when looking for price determination or for market equilibrium, it is very important to know when it comes to supply, know the law, know the curve, know the schedule. A schedule is a table that shows the relationship between the price and the supply. The graph. If the graph is facing downward, that is the demand graph. If it is facing upward, that is the supply graph. So those are the things you should know. Those are the things you should look for the final examination. Remember, you are expected to draw the graph. You are expected to interpret the table or the results on the table. You are expected to interpret the results on the graph. So you must know these things. You must have different cue cards that you will use, or with different information that you will use, or that will also give you clues while studying. And also apply previous question papers. Try to answer questions on the previous question papers and look for the memos, how the question is structured. Look for keywords, look for definition, because those are the things that will give you clues on answering the questions and obtaining that level 7. We need more of level 7s. Now, let us look at our first activity based on the demand law as well as the supply law as they apply on price determination. I will only give you like 5 minutes and then we will take it from there. Now, welcome back. Now, let us look at our first activity of the day. right, that deals with supply or the demand, right? The table below shows the demand of two products at different prices. The demand of two products at different prices, right? We have the price per bag, and then we have the quantity demanded. Right, 1.1, it says, draw a line graph showing the quantity of product 1. The keyword here, it is the line. We are drawing the line graph, not the bar graph, not the histogram, but a line graph showing the quantity of product 1 demanded at the different prices. Meaning you are not expected to write a graph between the price and product 2. That will be wrong. Because the statement or the question is very clear that we only want the line graph between the price and the quality or the quantity of product 1. Now, let us look at this graph and how it is marked. Now, first things first, I already mentioned that when it comes to price determination, it is either you'll be given a graph where you will have to analyze, or you will be given a table that you will need to analyze and draw a graph based on it. So there are two ways of answering answering supply and demand or price determination. Now, firstly, the total mark for this graph is 6 marks. Now you should be able, or you must be able, to obtain the whole of 6 marks. There's no need for people, or there's no need for learners to obtain 2 or 3 marks or 4 or even 5. This whole 6 is your low hanging fruit. So you must be able to obtain all these marks for the final examination. Now draw a graph showing the quantity of product 1 demanded at different prices for 6 marks. Now, firstly, what you need to do is to write the heading. Your heading should have the independent variable and the dependent variable. We've already indicated that, right? At all times, the independent variable should be on the x-axis and the dependent variable should be on the y-axis when drawing the graph. Now, the demand of product 1 at different prices. The demand of product 1 at different prices. So both variables, as indicated, they are in the heading for just a single mark, not 2 marks, but a single mark. Now, if you just write the demand of agricultural product or the demand of product, you are wrong. Where are the prices? Where are the prices? So you are wrong. The demand or at different prices, you are still wrong. Both variables must be part of your heading. Secondly, your x-axis, your calibration. Your x-axis must be calibrated, have a correct scale. Now, if you say you are using like 10, 20, 30, you must use 10, 20, 30, 40. If you are using 50, 100, 150, use 50, 100, 150. You do not need to say 150, 100. That is wrong calibration. That is a wrong scale. As a result, you won't be awarded with a mark for the x-axis or the independent variable. Now, at this point in time, if you indicate the quantity demanded, not just demand, but the quantity demanded as indicated in the table, they just said the quantity demanded, then you will get a mark that goes together with a correct scale. Now, on the y-axis, we are looking for the price as well as the correct, or the y-axis must be calibrated as well. It must have a correct scale. Now, here we are looking for the price with the correct scale, like 5, 10, 15, 20, 25. or 10, 20, 30, or 3, 6, 9, 12, 15. It's up to you. And you need to obtain a mark for that one. Now, a fourth mark goes to the units. Now, here we have units quantity demanded in kgs. And here we have price per bag that is in rand. So for both units, you will obtain just a single mark. Meaning if you only indicate kgs without rands, you will not get a mark. If you only indicate rands without kgs, you will not even get a mark. And you will also get a mark even if you indicate both these units on your heading. Like for instance, the demand of product 1 in kgs at different prices in rands. That is also correct. You will be rewarded a mark there. Now, your fifth mark will go to a line graph. Is a graph a line above a bar or a histogram? If it is indeed a line graph, even if it is in different shape, but if it is a line graph, you will get a mark for that. And the last mark goes to accuracy. Now, when we are looking for accuracy, we are looking for plots. Your plottings, are they correct? How are your plots? Are they correct? If they are correct, if you have 4 or 3 or more that are correct, then you will also rewarded a mark for accuracy. So this is how you obtain 6 marks for just drawing a graph and writing the correct answers. Now, 1.2, identify the product 1 or 2 in the table that reflects the law of demand and give a reason for the answer. Mark allocation, 2 marks. Now, the law of demand, it says the lower the price, the higher the demand. The lower the price, the higher the demand. Now, it says we need to identify product 1 or 2. Now, the only product that indicates the law of demand is product 1, right? That is the first answer, right? It is a mark there, product 1. Now, for a reason, the lower the price, the higher the demand, another mark. Now, if you can just write the lower the price, the low prices, that is incorrect. The higher the demand, without the lower the prices, still incorrect. So both variables, they need to be there to show that you understand this is the law. The law has both variables. It should have a price as well as the quantity that is demanded. So this is how you should answer for your final examination. Now, how do we determine the equilibrium point or equilibrium price? By using both the demand as well as the supply. Remember we said when we have a supply only on the market, there will always be a contradiction. Even if there is a demand, there will always be there will be no agreement. There will always be a disagreement. But once the demand and the supply work together, that is when we'll be able to determine the correct price for a particular product that will work for both producers as well as the consumers. Now, right here, what is a market equilibrium? The point at which the market supply equals market demand. Both these are correct, meaning the quantity supplied is equals to the quantity demanded. That is market equilibrium. And these are at the same price, a reasonable price, an equilibrium price. Now, how do we know what is our market equilibrium? How do we spot our market equilibrium? Now, our market equilibrium, after a long disagreement on the market, it is where these two lines meet, where these curves, we call them the curves, meet, where the demand curve and the supply curve meet. The demand always facing downward, supply always facing upward. When these two meet, that is our market equilibrium. Why? Because the quantity that is supplied is equals to the quantity that is demanded. Meaning if it is 10 that is supplied by producers, 10 will be demanded by the producers. At which price? At an equilibrium price. Let's just say our equilibrium price is 20 rand. And here we have just three products being demanded or being supplied, right? 3 for supplied, 3 for demanded, at which price? 20 rand. There is the stability. There is the agreement that we have on the market. Now, also, you should know about what happens above market equilibrium and what happens below market equilibrium. Now, above market equilibrium, we have the quantity supplied exceeds the quantity demanded. And below, right here, we'll always experience the quantity supplied being less than the quantity demanded. Meaning above, we have the surplus, and below, we have the shortage at all times. How do you know that? This graph represents the supply, this one represents the demand. At the same price, these ones will demand low, these ones will demand less, these ones will apply more because the price is high. But on this point, or at this point, when the price is low, these ones will demand more, and these ones will supply less, and these ones will demand more. So in the market, there will always be a surplus or a shortage if there is no understanding between consumers and the suppliers or producers. Now, after experiencing the oversupply, what are the methods or ways of overcoming or preventing the oversupply? Firstly, it is to communicate. Consumers must communicate with the producers, right? And then process or add value to the product by processing them, by moving maize into maize meal, right? Secondly, we can establish new markets where we can look for other target markets or for other consumers to sell to, right? We can store our agricultural products or apply the spreading of sales. So these are the methods of preventing the oversupply of agricultural product that occurs in the market, that occurs above the market equilibrium. Now, the market equilibrium can change, or the market equilibrium point, it can change, of which can increase the equilibrium price or decrease the equilibrium price. Now, what causes an increase in market equilibrium price and a decrease in equilibrium price? Now, firstly, when there is a shift between two graphs, maybe the supply decides to shift or the demand decides to shift. Now, firstly, let us focus on the shift of supply curve. Now, what happens when the supply curve shifts, whether to the right or to the left? Remember, the supply curve is always going upward. The price is directly proportional to the supply, or the supply is directly proportional to the price. Now, when the supply curve shifts in the market, let's just say the supply used to produce about 2,000 products. And in this season, the supply was favored. And then he produced about 3,000 products. Now, what happens in the market when the quantity supplied has increased? The supply curve, this one, to shift to the right. The demand remains the same. Quantity demanded remains the same. Number of consumers remains the same. They are constant. Now, if the quantity supplied increase in a market, the supply curve will have to shift, and it will have to shift to the right. And then when it shifts to the right, that also affects what? The equilibrium price or point. Let's just say here we had 5, 10, 15. Now, our first equilibrium price was 15 Rand. Now, the season a supply has increased, or the quantity supplied has increased. Now, that forces the graph to shift to the right. What will happen to the market equilibrium point? It will also shift. And once the market equilibrium point shifts, it will also cause the equilibrium price to shift. And when a producer produced more or supplied more product, the price of a product will have to decrease, moving from being 15 into 10 Rand. Remember we said market equilibrium point, it is where the two graphs meet. It is where the two graphs meet. Once one graph shifts, that will shift the market equilibrium point as well. Now, let's move to this one. Now, what happens when 5, 10, 15? Now, what happens when a producer used to produce 2,000 products, and then in this season, he produced about 500 products? The supply curve will have to shift. And when it shifts, it will have to shift to the left. This was our original market equilibrium. When a producer supplies less product, the supply will have to shift to the left at this point. What will happen to our market equilibrium? It will change. What will happen to our equilibrium price? It will also change. Now, if a product was 10 Rand, at this point, it will have to increase to what? To 15 Rand. So equilibrium point or equilibrium price is able to change in a market when the supply or the demand curve shifts. When the supply shifts to the right, it decreases the equilibrium price. When it shifts to the left, it increases the market equilibrium price. Now let's look at how the demand curve, how the shift of demand curve affects the market equilibrium, learners. Now, the demand curve is always facing downward. Now, when the demand curve shifts in the market, that also affects the market equilibrium price as well as point. Now, let's just say initially, these were the number of consumers that were demanding the product. Now, once there is an increase in the number of consumers in the market, that will cause the demand curve to shift to the right. And then when it shifts to the right, what happens to the market? The market equilibrium point will shift as well as the equilibrium price. Now, when there is an increase of consumers in the market, the price of a product will increase due to the increase in demand. Right. The demand curve will shift to the right, of which will increase what? The price of a product. But when, let's just say initially, we had about 10 consumers that were demanding the product, and then this demand decreased to 5, what will happen in the market? The demand curve will have to shift to the left because the number of consumers have decreased, and that will also decrease what? The equilibrium price. This tells us that when we have a large number of consumers demanding the product in the market, the price of a product will increase. But if we have a small number of consumers demanding the product in the market, the price of a product will decrease. It will be low. So this is how the shift of demand curve and the supply curve causes the shift in the price or the equilibrium price, as well as the market equilibrium point. Now let us look at our second activity of the day based on the market equilibrium. I'll give you 5 minutes or 6 minutes, and then we'll be back for remedials. Now, welcome back. Now, let us look at our activity. Now, the line graph below shows the equilibrium price for a particular agricultural product. Remember, I said in the exam, it's either you will be expected to draw the graph, or you will be provided with the graph, and then you will have to analyze and answer the questions. Now, identify lines A and B. Line A and B. Now, line A, that is the demand curve. And then line B, that is the supply curve. Why? A is facing downward, B is facing upward. Now, briefly explain what will happen on the market if the product was sold at 20 Rand. Now, that is where you will have to analyze, you will have to look at the graph, analyze, and because all your answers are in the graph. Now, this is the price of a product, right? This is the price. And this graph right here, it represents what? The supply. This one right here, it represents the demand. Now, if a price in a market is 20 Rand, what will happen if a price in a market is 20 Rand? When the price is 20 Rand, there will be a shortage, right? Why a shortage? There will be a shortage because the price right here, it tells us that this graph right here, of which represents the supply, the producers will supply less product, and then the consumers will demand more product, meaning the supply will be less than the demand, or the demand will exceed the supply. Why is that so? Why? Why is that so? Because the price of a product is low. Remember, the producers, they don't want to sell when the price is low. They want to sell when the price is high. That is why there is this disagreement. There is why there is a shortage in the market. Now, define equilibrium price. Now, equilibrium price, it is defined as a price at which supply equals to demand, 2 marks. So this is how you answer. You must be able to analyze. Even this point, you must be able to analyze. What do we have here? Learners, what do we have here? Right here we have the surplus. Why? Because the quantity supplied is greater than the quantity demanded. So you need to understand, you need to analyze the results. Now, last topic on the price determination, it is price elasticity. Now, price elasticity, you need to know two things: price elasticity of demand as well as price elasticity of supply. Now, let's start with price elasticity of demand. It speaks of the relationship between the price and the demand. And also, you should be able to calculate these for the final examination. Price elasticity is equals to the percentage change in demand equals to divided by the percentage change in price. When the answer is greater than 1, there is price elasticity of demand. When the answer is less than 1, price inelasticity of demand. And what does elasticity mean? It simply means that a change in price resulted to a massive change in demand. And price inelasticity, a change in price resulted to little or no change in demand. Now, how do you know using graphs? This is how we have already discussed that, right? This right here, it represents inelasticity. This one here, it represents elasticity. Right? Elasticity as well as inelasticity. Right? On elasticity as well, you must know the price elasticity of supply. Now, elasticity of supply, we are looking at the supply curve, how the change in price will affect the supply, how the producers will respond to a change in price in the market. Right here, we have the elasticity. And right here, we have the price inelasticity. Right? Elasticity here. And then let's just do this here. Let's just decrease the space, right? And then we'll have inelasticity of supply. So this is how you should look at the graphs and be able to interpret the graphs, right? And be able to give the correct answers. Right? Activity 3, based on price elasticity. Right, I will only give you about 2 minutes when it comes to this one, and then we'll be back for more questions and remedials. Now, welcome back. Now, let's read the statement, right, and read the questions and be able to answer these questions, right? The diagram below shows the demand for maize meal at different prices within a period of 2 months. Once you see that there's different prices within a period of different months or within a period of 2 months or 3 months, that is when you will know that we are speaking about the price elasticity. Right? How the change in price affects the change in demand or supply. But in this case, we are focusing on the demand. Now we have the picture or the diagram right here. Diagram A for maize meal, 12 kg. Right? The price initially it is 55 rand, meaning this maize meal, it is costing 55 rand. And the consumers demanded 100 bags of maize meal, while it was costing 55 rand. Now, on diagram 2, we have the very same product, of which is the maize meal, the same size, but the only difference here is that the price has changed. It has moved from being 55 rand to 85 rand. Let's just say this was in March, and this is now in April. Now, the price has changed in April to 85 rand. Now, In March, consumers demanded 100 bags, but in April, because of the change in price, the consumers demanded 95 bags. Initially in March, it was 55 rand. They demanded 100 bags. In April, it is now costing 85 rand, and the consumers demanded 95 bags of maize meal. Now, identify the marketing concept illustrated by diagram A and diagram B above. Diagram A and diagram B above. Now, diagram A and diagram B, it indicates price inelasticity of demand. Why? 3.2. Give a reason for the answer to question 4.1 or to question 3.1. Now, the answer will be, or the reason will be, a change in price resulted to little or no change in demand. There was little change in demand. A change in price resulted to little or slightly change in demand. That is your reason of price inelasticity of demand. There was no elasticity because as much as there was a massive change in price, but that does not stop consumers from buying what? The maize meal. They still demanded more bags of maize meal. So there is inelasticity. There was a slightly change. There was little change in demand. Now, explain the reason why consumers responded in such a way to the price change. Now, maize meal is a staple food. Or we can say it is a necessity. One. Consumers will still buy it even if the price increases. Why? Because it is a necessity. It is a need. Most people consume maize meal. There are a lot of things that you can prepare for maize meal. So it is a staple food. These consumers need these maize meal. That is why there was a slight change in demand when there was a massive change in price. Now, identify the factor that led to the difference in the number of bags demanded. And the factor that led to the number of bags demanded, it is the price. It is the price that was affecting the quantity demanded. So this is how you should be able, this is how you should answer your questions for the examination. Give us more, explain more. Be specific with your answers so you can obtain more marks. Now, on our today's lesson, learners, let us remind one another. We spoke more about price determination as we use the demand law and the supply law in identifying or in determining the price, helping us to determine the market equilibrium point as well as the equilibrium price. Right, the supply law is, it shows the relationship between the price and the supply. We discuss more about the demand law as it shows the relationship between the price as well as the demand. How the graph are indicated or shown, or the curves are shown in the graph. We also discussed more about the market equilibrium, of which is the point where the demand at a specific price is equals to the supply at the very same price. And we also discovered more about the equilibrium price, where it is a price where the supply equals to the demand. And we discussed more about price elasticity, how the change in price affects the change in demand or supply. And we learned more on how to identify price elasticity using a graph, how to calculate and even interpret the results that are calculated. Now, on our next lesson, we'll be focusing more on the agricultural product, of which is our part 1 and part 2, right? Agricultural marketing, differences between marketing and selling, agricultural marketing functions, as well as the development of a market, where we are identifying or determining the floor price, as well as the selling price, where we look at the different types of buyers, right? The monopoly situation, the government being involved in price determination, as well as the promotion mix. Now, thank you so much for watching this lesson. We'll see each other when we come back. We'll see each other on our next lesson. Stay blessed. God bless you.